Goodness me, has it been an eventful summer. The board have announced that they're looking into a new ground. There was then a board takeover attempt, which meant we had a transfer embargo for a little while. That fell through, so then we had to rush through all of our transfers in the space of a couple of weeks. Luckily, we'd done some earlier on. Plus, we're in a new division. Plus, I've had a big pay rise as part of my new contract, so I finally avoid the massive long commute that I'm having every day because the last house might not have been in Southend. And we've moved here. We can now afford a £350,000 house. 350 grand doesn't get you a lot in Southend. Goodness me, Essex is expensive. But there you go. We finally graduated to a detached house. Nice little 3-bed with a giant bush in the front garden. And most important of all is it's only a few minutes away from the ground every day. So, you know, short commute and all that. Hello and welcome to Season 5, Part 1 of Non-League to Legend. I'm Kev, and coming up on today's episode, we're up against one of my old clubs, not from this universe, from the FM17 universe. We're at home against Bolton for our first game at the giddy heights of League One. But before we get into all of that, there's been so much going on this summer. New stadium announcements are different this time, aren't they? I've not seen this before. I haven't got the news report anymore. I was hoping it would still be in my my inbox, but I can't see any mention of stadiums in there. But basically, the announcement was just the club are looking into a new stadium. They didn't mention location, they didn't mention a name, they didn't mention capacity or cost. They're just looking into it. And then a couple of weeks later, there was an attempt at a board takeover. Luckily, we'd got a lot of our transfer business done by that point. But someone came in, tried to buy the club. The board, I don't know if they're actively looking to sell. It doesn't mention anywhere on here, does it? There used to be a screen that used to say how. There you go. We'll listen to offers. So there might well be more boardroom shenanigans going forward. But at the moment, we've got full control of the pennies again, which is good because we've spent all of them. We had our first big chunk of transfer money that we've been able to have during this season's on League to Legend, and goodness me, did we spend some of it. £500,000 off of players coming in. A few of you did mention the free that we brought in at the end of last season. We could have gotten free transfers if we'd have waited a few months. I couldn't afford to wait for those players. I needed them there and then. We did manage to pick up a couple of free transfers a little bit later on. But firstly, the out. Sam Byrne left the club. We brought in a couple of strikers. We didn't need him anymore. Brandon Comley's departed. Marlon Romeo's gone as well. Dan Matsuzaka also left the club. And Ryan Meadows has moved on as well, making his loan move to Grimsby from last season permanent. So the ins. Firstly, and possibly most importantly, Raquel Pike is now a permanent Southend player. We announced this at the end of last season. He still dreads playing in big matches. Oh, actually, he doesn't. That was still on there recently. Last time I looked, it's gone now. So perhaps he won't be quite so useless when we're playing in important matches this time around. But, I mean, we just needed him for his goals. He had a cracking season last year, a cracking season the season before for Carlisle. And hopefully he'll keep his goal-scoring exploits going into League One. We also brought in a centre-back. Tom Anderson comes in from Port Vale, 26 years old. In theory, as good as Adam Jackson, or close to, same sort of age as well. Another one who's good in the air. Lots of experience at this level. Been playing in League One for Port Vale for the last couple of years. Even had some brief flirtations with the Championship when he was at Burnley previously as well. So hopefully he's going to be another cracking player who comes in to partner Jackson at the back. And we've got a proper centre-back partnership that's good enough for this level that should be able to stick around for the next 4 or 5 years. All being well. James Blanchfield made his loan move from last year permanent. Obviously, he missed a lot of last season with the injury that he picked up during his loan spell with us. Went back to Ipswich, but he's a Southend lad, so he comes back to the city. Is it Southend a city? Probably a town. The place where he was born. So hopefully he's going to be just as impressive for us this year as he was for us during that loan spell last year. We weren't able to get Aidan O'Neill. We did try. But we couldn't get him. Barnsley wanted to keep him. They also wouldn't let us loan him because apparently he's going to be in and around their first team this year. So unfortunately we couldn't make that one permanent. But we did bring in another striker, Jack Marriott, 25 years old, comes in from Luton, has goals in him as we've seen from his League 2 record previously. Didn't score a gazillion goals in League 1 for Luton last year, but for 80 grand, there's goals to be had if we can figure out how to get them out of him. And obviously we've got some other good options around as well. Our big signing of the summer was the player I think we needed more than anyone else. Again, this is someone who's a bit of a callback to last year's non-league to legend. Aaron Cool was part of my Ipswich team that got all the way to second in the Premier League, won the Europa League, won the FA Cup a couple of times. Judging by his potential ability, he's not going to get that good this time. I mean, he was a full England international in last year's game for us when we were at Ipswich. He's already 24 now, only 3-star current ability, 3.5-star potential ability, but he is going to be that midfield player who can get box to box, get a few tackles in, generally just be the player that keeps the midfield together while the others dance around him, creating all the chances. There is a bit of controversy around him because he comes in from our local rivals, Colchester, but he's had a decent season for them in League One last year. And I think he's going to be... I saw his name and wanted to sign him. That's what it really came down to. Hopefully he'll become half as good as he was for us last year, and then he'll end up being an awesome player and go on to captain the club in FA Cup victories and stuff. That'd be nice, won't it? We've got another loanee goalkeeper in, Norberto Miguel, comes in on loan from Man United, 2.5-star current ability, 5-star potential ability. He's not one we're ever likely to get permanently. I know you all said we needed to replace Ted Smith. Couldn't bring myself to do it. I quite like him. And the fact that we couldn't find anyone better. We've brought in a youngster as well, Colin McCurleen. Comes in from the Irish leagues, 19 years old. He's one for the future. Don't expect to see too much of him this year unless we have injuries or terrible form. He's only our 6th best striker in theory, but has a lot of potential. Could end up becoming rather good for us a couple of years down the line. And we also have George Fowler returning to the club. We had him on loan all last year. He was a bit of a tricky customer. I didn't think we were going to get him for a little while, but he now signs for us permanently. Another one who's coming from Ipswich. So many Ipswich connections this summer. He's 3-star current ability, 4-star potential ability, can offer some cover at centre-back for Jackson and Anderson. More likely, though, he's going to play at right-back for us because we weren't able to bring in a proper right-back, so we've only got Fowler, Keneally and John White. Yes, that's right, John White is still at the club because we couldn't find an alternative. And then lastly, to complete the little set, we bring in a loanee. Harry Hamblin comes in on loan from Southampton, another midfielder who's capable of getting a tackle in, can play defensive midfielder or have a go at being a centre-back as well when the need arises. He's one that I'm signing on loan with a view to trying to nick him permanently if we can. Lots of potential. Hasn't played a huge amount of football. Spent last season on loan at Doncaster, where he wasn't exactly spectacular. But I have high hopes for him as a squad player. Finance-wise, there's still a whole heap of money in the bank. We're not quite within our wage budget this time. I know we were trying to be very careful. This wasn't just because of signing too many players. We brought in a lot of players before the transfer embargo came in. Then it clicked round into the new season and most of the squad got pay rises for the fact that we got promoted, and that added about 15 grand a week to the wage budget, not wage budget, the wage outlay. So we're just about broken even for wages. We've used up our transfer budget, so if we do bring anyone else in, it's likely to be on loan unless somebody leaves the club. But I don't really want anyone to leave. I think I'm pretty happy with this squad. Again, if we sort them by ability, it's a decent number there. Some with some decent potential as well. Quite a small squad, which hopefully isn't going to cost us too much as the season goes on. Our goal for this season is just to establish ourselves in League One. We're not looking for promotion pushes or anything silly like that. I'm not that kind of manager. I'm not capable of going up, boom, 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 league after league after league. So it's all about establishing ourselves this year, seeing where we are this time next year, and maybe having a cheeky little job application and toddle off somewhere else if we do perform well this season. So this is the team that we're going to be playing for the first match. As you can see, it's not massively different from the team that we were playing towards the end of last season. If it's not broke, don't fix it. We had a brilliant run towards the end of last year. Some of these are a little bit iffy for League One, particularly the fullbacks, and we are actively looking to bring in some fullbacks on loan to try and plug it's the biggest obvious issue in the squad at the moment. You lot seem to not like the keeper. I don't see what's wrong with him. I know he has a few howlers, but he's 3-star current ability, 4-star potential ability. Leading player for most League Two sides, and I think he had a good season last year. Yes, he conceded 55 goals. Yes, he always concedes more goals than games he's played, but he's a young lad, and he's nearly played 150 league games for the club already. And it's going to take a good goalkeeper to push him out of the side. The one thing we do need to be wary of is there are clubs in for Adam Jackson, so we need to make sure we don't lose him, because losing him at this point would be a big issue unless we got a huge heap of cash for him. So, the team for today's game, we've got Ted Smith in goal, a back four of Plummer, Anderson, Jackson and Fowler, with Wordsworth, Cool and Keneally in midfield, Benteke in behind Pike and Schiavi. So there's not much in the way of new boys. We've just got Anderson and Cool coming into the side. But we'll see. We'll see how we get on. And if we need to try some of the other newbies, they're knocking around on the bench. James Cragen's still here. Broccoli's still here. Jack Marriott's down there, along with Harry Hamblin. And Martel Taylor-Crossdale, in the end, was the striker we chose to keep out of him and Byrne, mainly because he's only 20 and still has 5-star potential. We've seen in the past that he is capable of scoring a few goals here and there. Yes, he wasn't fantastic last year, but that doesn't tell the whole story. He only actually started 2 games and picked up 2 goals, and if we can somehow start to capitalise on some of that potential he's got, he could end up being quite the player for us. So let's give Hamblin his squad number, get into today's game. Obviously Bolton are big favourites for the game. They're a big club at this level. I'm surprised to see them still down at this level, but what's all this? Glenn, who is he? I don't care who he is. No, don't remember him. He must have been one of the trilees we had. I don't know who Jamie Allen is either. Yeah, of course we can win. Seriously, is that Jack Rodwell playing in League One? 3 full England caps valued at £4.5 million. And he's playing in League One. Bolton went back up to the Championship today and they just got relegated back down. Well, that makes things even harder, because this is going to be a squad mostly made up of Championship quality players. If we can avoid being embarrassed today, then that would be a start, I think. There was 2 divisions separating us this time last year, and we've not hugely strengthened. We're trying to keep faith with what got us here, with a view to establishing ourselves, whereas Bolton have still got full England internationals in their team. So, don't expect us to win. And if we do, we're clearly going to romp this league. The one thing, I guess, that might help is that I imagine we're the form team. If they've just got relegated and we've just got promoted, we should be in form. That obviously doesn't matter, though, because they've already scored. 5 minutes on the clock. We're 1-0 down. We've not even had a shot yet. And Bolton are already 1-0 up. Because they're a Championship quality team, they're going to win this league this year, surely. I can't believe they've got Rodwell in their midfield. I know those Premier League folks amongst you, that might not seem that impressive, but for us folk who are used to hanging around in League One, for a player like him to be in this league at the age that he's at as well, it's not as if he's an up-and-comer. He's 29 years old. He's obviously not quite had the career he hoped he'd have when he was at Everton 10 years ago in game. But still, for him to be at this level at that age, that's scary stuff. Ted Smith's picked up an injury, and that might be a big problem, because we don't really have much in the way of backup. Obviously, we've got that lad who's come in from Manchester United, but I really don't have to be relying on a teenage goalkeeper at the start of a season where we really don't know if we're going to end up being good enough for this league. And that is our big signing from the summer, sent off in the first half of his debut. Well, that was money well spent, wasn't it? So he's now going to miss a couple of games as well, presumably. We've got to try and get back into this against a team who are much better than we are, with only 10 men. Oh, they're going to tear us apart in this second half, aren't they? And we've just got 2 old men stood in our midfield as well. Keneally and Wordsworth have got a combined age of about 65. I'm already feeling less confident about my summer transfer business. I'm going to blame the transfer embargo on a lot of it, because we were looking quite good by sort of middle of June. Then the transfer embargo came in and it all started to go a little bit wrong, because we just weren't able to bring any more players in. Let's take both the strikers off. Bring Marriott and Taylor-Crossdale on. They can play that way round. And I mean, we're only 1-0 down still. We're not embarrassing ourselves yet. In actual fact, if you look at the stats, it's been a fairly even game. And if anything, if you were basing this purely on the stats, we deserve an equaliser, especially considering we've played half the game, well, more than half the game, with 10 men. But surely the fact that they've got an extra man for so long is going to end up tiring us out. And as we move into the last 15 minutes or so, Bolton are going to get a couple more goals, I imagine. There's the first one of them. There's just nothing we could have done about this. I can hear you. We could have signed better players. Okay, I'll let you have that. But remember, our scouting structure was built around being a League 2 team. When you refuse to touch the player search screen like I do, and you are basing your incoming transfers purely on what your scouts can find, it takes a little bit of time to adjust to being in a new league. Take Benteke off and bring Cragen on. Because obviously all the players the majority of the players that we had scouted were scouted with a view to us being a mid-table League 2 team, which is what we were when they were scouted. So we've signed the best of what we could find. I imagine by the time we get round to Christmas, or certainly this time next year, there's going to be much, much better players becoming available, and we can do some more impressive business. We just need to make sure we survive that long. Not the best start to the season we could have hoped for, but it certainly could have been a lot worse against a good Bolton side, especially when you consider that over half the game was played with only 10 men. So I'm not going to panic yet. We'll see how things go. If you've enjoyed that, make sure you pop a like on there for me. Remember, whenever it's the first game of a new season, we like to get to 500 likes. So I would massively appreciate if you pop a like on there for me. Get this up to 500 likes as soon as we can. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more. And thank you very much for watching.